Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone. I'm just going to let all the attendees roll in and everyone get started, as that takes a couple minutes, and then I will get started with this week's Getting Started webinar. So I can just see the numbers going up. So I'm just going to leave it a couple more seconds and then I'll get kick started. Cool, that looks good. The numbers have stabilized now, so that looks like the majority of the team we're getting today. Hi guys, my name is Honor. Before I say anything else, can some people just pop in either the question box or the chat box that they can hear me, because this is not going to be a good webinar if no one can hear me. So just double checking that the audio is correct, just let me know and then we can keep going. Steve says all fine. Thank you. Yeah, Patrick as well. Thanks, guys. It was going to be a useless webinar without sound, so good that we've got that. Hi, everyone that's saying hello as well. Hi. Yeah, cool. So now that you can hear me, I can get started. So my name is Honor, and I am a member of Convertri's support staff. I help man our emails. At certain points of the day, I post in our Facebook group and help users out there and do a variety of things. Some of the videos on the help article knowledge base, for instance, if you visited there, you might recognize my voice. So just, to put a face to a name. Oh, I've got someone from Bermuda. Good morning to you. It's afternoon my time. It's lovely to have a mix of people. I'm sure it's not as gloomy with you as it is with me currently in the United Kingdom. But this is me here. So this is our about page. You get to meet all of our team, and this is me. So that's what I look like. You're only going to hear my voice today, but I am a member of the support staff and one of the people who knows a lot about Convertri and gets to share that with everyone. So in today's session, I'm going to show you guys how to build a lead funnel. So that's going to be a working form page which connects to a thank you page where a user can download a free guide I give them. So we're going to set up a working funnel to begin with. The next thing I'm going to do is go through our editor tips and tricks, and I would really recommend sticking around for this part because these things changed the way that I used Convertri the first time. When I started the company, I watched one of my co-workers do this webinar, and those changed the game for me. So I'd recommend sticking around for those after the funnel building. Next, we will move on to just a little demo of this week's features. We are an evolving company. We are constantly releasing new features, and I'd like to show some of them off to you guys just to get a scope of the kind of thing that we add to Convertri. After that, there will be a question and answer for anything and everything Convertri, and I'm not going to cut off a time limit. So if you have a question that you really want answered, you can stick around till then, and I will be answering everyone. Got a couple more hays saying hello to me. Hi, guys. But before I get started, these webinars can be a really, really mixed bag. And so I'm really interested how familiar everyone feels with Convertri. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to ask you guys. So if 1 is I have not even asked, I've got someone saying that they can't hear me. Can everyone else still can? Just check everyone else can still hear me. Everyone else can still hear me. Okay, so we've got someone who's probably on mute. Oh yeah, the rest of you guys can, so hopefully they'll work it out. So Ashish has said he's a 3. Thank you for letting me know. So yeah, I'm a 10, I like to think, with Convertri. I know what's going on. Pretty much do. You'd hope so, right? So where is everyone else at today? Oh, we've got another mixed bag again. We've got a lot of kind of the 3 and the 4 area coming in. A couple of 6s, so it's a bit more expectation there to impress. We had a 10 last week and I was thinking, oh my gosh, they could run the webinar. Cool. So yeah, a really nice mixed bag from you guys. Thanks for letting me know. And yeah, we've got some people who've never even opened Convertri. So there you go, a nice mixed thing. But at the end, hopefully you'll all have that platform to go. And for the people that have a bit more knowledge, the tips and tricks is definitely the area where you are going to excel today. So let's get started with building you guys a funnel. Just going to check everyone is okay. Yep, everyone is good. So we're going to be building a page that kind of looks like this. This is my starting point. And this is going to be our lead page. We're going to get the image in the background and we're going to get a working form. When a user fills out this form and clicks download now, they'll be taken to my thank you page where they can download this guide that I am advertising. And this is a really classic way of gathering information, offering something useful to your users, and in return, they get added to a list where you sell them similar products. So when you're looking at an empty funnel inside Convertri, you might think, oh my gosh, where do I start? How do I build one of those? Well, let's start by creating a page. So in the top right-hand bar, click New Page. And you'll see all of our templates pop up. And these will take a while to load, guys, because there are so many great templates. And I would recommend having a nose through because we update them, like when we update the features. And there really is so many different niches in there available. But today I'm going to show you how to create a page from scratch, because if we can do it from scratch, you can most definitely build it from scratch yourself or adapt templates. So I'm going to click create a page from scratch and give it a name. It's an opt-in page, so I'm going to call it just that. I'll click OK, and this has now been added to my funnel as a blank page, and we are ready to get started with it. So from here, you can hang over the page card and you'll see edit page come up. Just click on that and our page builder will open and we can get started. The first thing I'm going to add, guys, is the background image, because it makes the most sense to build from the bottom layer upwards to avoid confusion in the future. Obviously, I could put this image in later and send it to the back, but I like to build up right. A couple people again saying that they can't hear me, but a couple people saying they can hear me. I will move my mic a little bit closer, guys, and if you can't hear me, I'm just going to pop in the chat a little question about, just a little comment to the people that can't hear me quickly, guys. Thanks for everyone's patience. You can hear me chattering on. Right, we'll see if that helps out all of the people who are having problems. Webinars can be a tough one. Right, cool. So hopefully that will help out the people. And in the meantime, let's add a background image. So to add an image to Convertri, you need to go to the elements tray. I will slow down, Nathaniel. I apologize. I'm a quick talker, so I will slow down a little bit there. So the first thing, no worries, I do it and I don't realize, so there you go. So the first thing we're going to do is add this background image, and I'm going to do that by adding an image from the elements tray. This is what we call the elements tray, and this is where you'll get any component that you add to a page in Convertri. So we'll be getting text from here, form elements. We've still got people unable to hear, which is completely bemusing me. So I'm just going to shoot them another message, guys. Thanks again for your patience. If anyone can't hear me today, there will be a recording of this, which should hopefully help them out in the future. So not all is lost there. Right. So adding this image from the elements tray. If you hover over these, they have the label of what they do, right? And so if I hover here, I can see image. So I'm going to click that and up will come up our image pop-up. Yeah, most of you guys are saying audio is good, so I'm just going to press on and if needs be, send some recordings later, guys, so that you guys get to hear the webinar. So the pop-up has come up and it's asking me, what image do you want to add to your site? And let's say I didn't have an image. In this situation, I do. But let's say I don't have an image. A really great way of finding one without kind of trawling Google and checking if you have the rights to an image is to use our Pixabay integration. So Pixabay provides free images, and you can go on their actual website and download images from there, but we have a direct integration with them. So all you have to do in this pop-up is click search Pixabay, and you can search for any kind of image that you want. So is there any examples of things that you want me to search into Pixabay today, guys? I think a previous week someone asked me to type in a bear. I've also had biscuits, which tends to make me really hungry on the webinar, so I actually don't appreciate biscuits. But is there anything that you guys think would be cool to see what Pixabay throws up for us? I've got a couple of suggestions coming in here, and they are very, very varied, which we like. And again, I've never had the same 2 suggestions on a webinar. I'm yet to have that. People always bring something different. So I have masks, and I have a music teacher as well. I'm going to go masks, Steve, because I'm also equally as intrigued about you about what would come up when we type in masks. And there we have it. So Pixabay's obviously interpreted both the traditional mask and the mask that lots of us are knowing day to day. So this is a great way of simply getting an image and saying, oh, cool, there's an image of a mask. If you click on that and you click select, that will get added directly to your page. We're not going to do that today, and there is a reason for this. If you look closely, the resolution of this image is pretty good, 1920 by 1280. And like I said, this is good. This won't show up as like fuzzy or anything like that. This will have an effect. But I know that Convertri can handle a faster, it will still go really quickly with a higher resolution image. And I myself have a higher resolution image. So as much as I like this suggestion of a mask today, I am going to go with my own image simply because of a higher resolution. So that is this one here. And you can see immediately that, Convertri is handling that much higher resolution. So that is the only limit to using Pixabay, guys. And it's a really small one. So I'd really recommend making use of that. But I've picked this one. This is one I uploaded from my computer previously, which you can do either by dragging straight from the desktop, or you can click upload and you'll be taken through your computer's files to find the correct image. So I'm happy with this one, so I'm going to click select. And the image has been added to my page. Convertri is freeform, so I can move this image simply by clicking it and dragging it. So I could put it wherever I want. But one thing I am going to do to this image is I'm going to make it full width. So in order for it to be a background image, I need it to cover the entirety of my web page. And I could eyeball this and do it myself, but a lot of what I teach you guys in this webinar is going to be removing human error, because we are humans and we make errors. And the full width feature just eliminates the chance that you missed a corner. So with your elements selected, and you can tell that it is because of our little blue lines around here, click full width in the top hand toolbar. It's kind of 2 arrows pushing out. And my image has now fit to the sides of the screen. So I'm going to drag it up and get it to cover a bit more room here so that we get the full effect. So there we go. That is my background image all added to my account. The next thing I'm going to add, because I'm going off this demo page that I have made previously, is this header and this footer here. I like them. I think it makes it look a bit more professional, keeps it in, and it gives me a place to store my privacy policy as well. So to add this, we're going to go back to our elements tray and click on panel. Up will pop a panel, and it is what it says on the tin. It's just a simple square, but we are going to make use of it multiple times in this webinar to fit what we need. So the first thing I'm going to do is make this panel full width again, just like the image, so it sits on top. I'm going to tuck it up to the top, kind of where that header was before. Cool, so I've got a header right, but if you saw the demo page, you'll see that it was kind of a sandier yellow color, and my panel is fine, but it's gray, and I want a sandy yellow. So to change the background color of this element or any other, select the element again, so the blue lines are around it. Select element properties, and up will come all of the editing options for this element. But I'm going to go background because it's the background color that I care about. I'm going to open a color picker, and the color picker will change the color of this background panel live. So if you can see it behind the pop-up, you will be able to see the color changing. So to open this color picker, simply click the square below background fill. So this one here, if you hover over it, it says open color picker. From here, you literally get to choose your color how you wish and drag it around just how I dragged the element, so that I can choose exactly what color I want rather than kind of guesstimating, which I am never very good at. So I'm going to go about here. I like that color, and that kind of suits my color palette that I'm going for. You'll notice that as I was dragging this around, this RGB value was changing. These RGB values represent this exact shade of yellow. And if you want to have this uniformity across your whole account, the best thing to do is either stick it on a post-it note, write this down, or copy and paste this across, because if you were on another page and you wanted to use this exact color, all you would have to do is paste this value into this box and you would have the same color. So it's a really great way of keeping things uniform without having to hope that all your pages are matching, right? Cool. So I'm liking the color of that. I've messed around with it a little bit, so I'm going to click select. This has now been applied to my element, and I'm feeling pretty good about this as a header. It's exactly what I wanted. But now I'm looking and I have to create that footer, and I'm going to have to paste across that RGB value, and it feels kind of like I'm going to be repeating things. But actually, there is a solution to this, and that is the ability to clone elements. It's like a copy and paste, but for Convertri elements and with one click. So I want my footer to be exactly the same size as my header to create that uniform look. So I'm going to click on my header, make sure it's still selected with the blue lines. I'm going to go to my top toolbar where I found full width, and I'm going to click clone. And now I have two of the same element. I'm going to drag this down to kind of match what I'm going for, and voila, there I have it. I have a header and a footer just as I wanted. They're the same size, they're the same shade, and I didn't have to sweat it too much. Cool, well, the elements on our page are starting to stack up, guys, and I'm going to start to make that box that I had on my demo page, kind of the all-important box really, that contained my text and has my form elements in it. So the first thing I'm going to do is create the background for that box, and that again will be a panel that we will make look different than the header and footer. So I'm going to click panel. You can also drag elements, so you can either click panel or you can drag it out like so. That is up to you guys. I'm more of a clicker. I know some of my coworkers are more dragging people. So I'm going to make this big enough to contain all of my form elements. Feeling pretty good about that, maybe a bit bigger. So I'm happy with that. And now I'm going to add all my elements in so I can arrange them and make them look how I want them to look. So the first thing that I need is that text box with my heading in, the title of the guide that I'm giving away. I will come on to later on how I make this look much more like a heading, right? I'm just adding my elements for now. The next thing I need to add is the spiel that I had, the text that told the user, hey, surely you want this, right? I'm not going to write too much, but just something to let them know what my guide is about and see if they're interested. Just making sure I've got my line spacing. Oh, Terry managed to get the audio going, which is fantastic. Glad to have you, Terry. Apologies for your previous issues. Not too sure what that was. There will be a recording made available of this webinar. Hopefully, I'll get it up tonight. If you email support@convertri.com, I'll work the help desk and I'll be able to let you know exactly when the recording is up for that snippet at the start that you've missed. But welcome into the webinar, Terry. Cool, so I am still just typing out my text. Thanks for your patience, guys. I'm not the fastest typer. Right, that's all I wanted to say, so I'm pretty happy with that. Just make sure I've got my spelling right. It's always a good sign on a sales page. There we go. Cool. And I want that element just a bit wider because I didn't need it so fat. I want it to kind of fit the sides of the box. Next, I'm going to add another text element, which is just going to tell the users, hey, enter your details below, right? You want to be as clear as possible to the user about how to get your guide. And then I'm going to do a final text element at the bottom before I add my form elements that's just about spamming people. And so this is something that I like to do and lots of other people like to do, but none of this is compulsory. None of this text is compulsory. Basically, the only two things on this page that are compulsory are an email input box and a submit button. But just reassuring people that you're not going to spam them, you're not going to send them 100 details a day, that you're only going to send them relevant information, I think is something we all appreciate to know when we give someone our email address, and it kind of solidifies your position with them, right, if that was a hesitation that they were having. So I always just put that at the bottom. So I've got a couple of questions from Steve about this. So yeah, Steve's asking questions. If you guys have any questions about exactly what I am doing in the moment, please pop a question in. We can do like general FAQs at the end, but if you want me to go back, repeat something, or say, what are you doing? Pop it in here. So I can't zoom this page in and out myself with Convertri, but what you can do is if you were to, you have to use Chrome with Convertri. You can see up here that Convertri has the Chrome browser has the ability to zoom and go in and out, and Convertri will adjust with that. The other question that Steve asked, which is quite interesting, is what determined how far down you place the bottom bar? And to be honest, Steve, it's just where I wanted to put it. If you have a really, really small web page, so let's say I put the bottom bar where this blue line was, they might get some white space at the bottom because desktops are a certain size. They don't stretch your page down. They just show where it ends and then there's white. So I wouldn't recommend putting, your bottom bar somewhere like here, but around this bottom space. This is about how big it will be on the web page, so it's quite a good judge of it, and I know the user can scroll a bit. So that's how I judged it. I kind of eyed it. If you're unsure, looking at things like our templates and where they place their bottom bars are a pretty good thing to go off. Cool, so I've got all the text added to the page, and this text isn't looking how I want it to do just yet. I want to change some fonts, I want to change some sizes, that needs to be a clearer heading, and you can do that pretty simply by like clicking in the text boxes, and you can see the font types, font sizes, the color. But I don't want to do this one by one. As I said earlier, guys, so much about Convertri is reducing that human error and making it as easy as possible for you guys. So instead of changing these one by one, I'm going to set what are called default text styles, which is basically a style for all the text on the page that will automatically be applied to it, so that when I add text in the future, I don't even have to think about what font I made it, because I decided it at the time. It's the default text style and it will stay that way. To do this to your page, go to your top hand toolbar and click on Page, which has a little eye above it. You'll get another pop-up with lots of options, and your second one will be your default text styles. So in here, you have a couple of different options. How your text looks like in a paragraph, so that's your normal Joe text. Your heading 1, heading 2, and how it looks if that text has been hyperlinked. So for my main text, I just like some different fonts. So I'm just going to go back to my favorite font, which is Lato. I'm going to change the line spacing to be a bit bigger, just so it's really easy to read. I don't mind the size, like when I've seen it here, because you'd see it's changed live down here. So I don't mind the size as such. I think that's working for me. But what I am going to change is the mobile font scaling. So you have a default font scaling for mobile. If you imagine a mobile phone, the screen is smaller and normally the text is bigger, because people are aware of the fact that if my font was that size on a mobile, no one's even reading it, right? So Convertri would automatically set this to be 150%. So for instance, if my font was a size 4, which obviously is tiny, Convertri would automatically set it to be 6 in mobile. But I don't want my text to be too big on mobile, because I'm not including too much of it on my page. So I'm just going to go through, and I think I'm going to change this to 125 is where I normally go. That's something you can have a fiddle around with, see how it looks, republish your page, etc. That's just how I like to do it. For my heading, again, I'm going to change the font style. I like Noto Sans. I think it complements Lato really well. I'm happy with it to be bold. That font size of 36 is a bit big for me. I think I'm going to take that down to about a 24. And I'm just going to also change the font scaling for this as well. So the title is slightly scaled bigger than the main text because it's kind of the most important part of my page other than the buttons. Cool, I'm happy with all those changes and I've set my default text styles up so I won't have to do that again. So I'm going to click done. These text boxes are all now Lato and the size that I said and everything, so that is sorted. However, this one hasn't automatically become my title, my heading font style, because I haven't told it to. So in order to get this changed to your heading style, you simply need to highlight the text that you want to apply a different default text style to, go to More, and then H1 up here. So it's currently set to P for paragraph. If I wanted to set it to heading 2, I'd do H2, but I want heading 1 because that's the one I set up with Noto Sans. So I'm going to click H1. And if I click More to close this again, you can now see that this is title size. So I'm going to move some of these elements down to make room for my shiny new title there. And maybe bring this in a bit. Cool. So that's, again, starting to look closer and closer to what I want, but I am missing those all important form elements, so I'm going to add those now. To add these, you need to go to the form elements tray, which is below the image where we added image before, and it will fold out and it will say, oh, which form element do you want? And that's up to you. Today, I'm going to have a first name, an email, and a submit button. As I said earlier, the minimum you would need would be an email box and a submit button. I just like first name because some point in the future I might want to email them a personalized email. So I just like to have that information sent to my autoresponder as well. So I'm going to add a first name. I'm going to add email like that. I'm also going to add a submit button because otherwise the email will not send. And when I add these to the page, you might notice if you have a keen eye for detail, because I can imagine it's pretty minor, that these have not taken on the Lato default font style that I have set. So these are the only things that won't really be affected by that. All the text boxes will. And so I need to change these myself to fit my theme, to fit what I was going for. So to do this, click on the element where you want to change the text styling of it, and go to element properties. Before we clicked on background, but I am going to go to input properties. You can see text styling as an option there. So the automatic font family is Roboto, and that's fine, but I want this to be Lato, like everything else. And I'm going to change that on this one as well. So rather than having to close that, I can just click on the element and it will show me the input properties. I'm going to go Lato. Except for that, the size of that text is suiting me fine. And that placeholder text where it says first name does what it says on the tin. Don't see the point of changing that. But with this submit button, I don't really want it to say submit, so I'm going to click on it again, go to button settings rather than input settings. They might be headed different. You can see that text styling is the same, so it should be an indicator of where you go to change the text. This button mode is set to sign up, which is correct because we want them to sign up to a list. But there's a couple of things I want to change, and the first being the label. I kind of want to be a bit more direct than submit, so I'm going to click download now. It becomes very clear to them what will happen when they click that button. I'm also going to change this to the same font size as the heading. I'm going to make it a bit bigger, maybe around there. I'm going to make it bold, just really clear. That button is really important. You want to click me, you want to download now. So this is all starting to come together and it's matching, but one thing you might notice is these are looking a bit, they're not exactly lined up, right? And this is the point where you think, I'm going to have to watch Honor line up all these elements and kind of think maybe she could turn on grid lines or something and work out where they go. Well, luckily for you guys, I'm not going to bore you with that. Instead, I'm just going to show you our alignment tools, which then you don't have to guesstimate. You know that these things are aligned perfectly. So I've got a panel behind all these elements, right? And they're contained by it because they are in front of it. And so this panel does more than just aesthetics. what it does is create what we call a container. It contains all the elements. And that means that when I click on the container, you get these little pink lines around the elements that basically say, oh, you've selected that container, so you've selected all these elements too. And that means that when I do alignment, then it is affecting all of these elements. So sometimes people will add clear panels behind things just so that they can do this alignment easily and quickly. I know I do. So when you've got this clicked, you can go to the alignment tools, which is next to full width, which we used earlier. It looks like two things kind of lining up. And you can click the little arrow next to it. And you will see, just to confirm, that we are in container mode, which means that I am editing a container. So there's all sorts of different alignment tools, but I think I want these elements to all align to the center of my container. Cool, that's looking pretty good. The other thing I want to do is I'm going to bring these down a bit, but I want them to be not only aligned to center, but I want these to be equally distributed. So rather than selecting the whole element itself, I'm going to hold down Shift and then click on the elements that I want to select all at once. So that's these four. I want these to be equally distributed. I'm going to go back to that arrow again. I'm now in multi-selection mode, so I've got more than one element selected, and I'm going to distribute these guys vertically. Just going to do a center align again because I have a feeling I jogged that one out of place. And there we go. My form is looking pretty good, and that's all lined up, and I didn't even have to think twice about it, which makes me pretty happy because spending hours on alignment is not what I want to do. The final thing I really need to do to this panel is make this box look more like that demo page where it looked super kind of gelled in. It looked like it suited. Currently it just kind of looks like a square on the page, and I don't hate it, but I like the way that the other one looks. And so there's two things that I will do to edit this panel. The first will be that I will make it a bit opaque, so it kind of blends into the background, but you can still see the text. And I will also create rounded corners. I will create a border around the edge of this element, which again makes it look a bit more professional rather than just a little cube. So to do this, I click on that container and I go to element properties. Let's do the opacity first. So I'll go back to background where we were before to change the color of the header. Open that color picker again. But whereas before I was dragging along around here looking at my colors, I'm actually going to go to this other side. And this is about how see-through, how opaque your panel or other element is. This goes, the same for other elements. You can also edit the opacity on. So as I start to bring this down, you'll see my box start to get more and more see-through. And I mean, that's not going to work for me, is it? Because no one can in any way see what I have going on. So I think I'm going to go about here. You can see the background, it's blending in, but you can most definitely read the text too. And then I'm going to click select. This has an RGBA value, is exactly the same principle as an RGB value. If I copy and pasted this into the background fill of another element, it would be exactly this opaque as well. The final thing I'm going to do then is on this element is make those corners rounded, and that is back in element properties, this time borders. So your border radius, which is how you choose how kind of curved in your corners are, don't have to be identical. I could have two curved corners or one curved corner like that if I wanted to, but I kind of like mine to match. So I'm going to toggle on border radius, which basically says all of these have the same border radius, and then you just enter the value here so you can get really, dramatic borders. I think I'm around here for how I like mine. If I click off it, you'll be able to see that that is looking a hell of a lot better than it did before, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. My page is nearly ready. The only thing left is that privacy policy that I mentioned right at the start. So that's just another text element that I'm going to pop into my footer and type the words privacy policy. But what I do need to do is hyperlink this. I'm going to make this element small, and then I'm going to center align it just so it is exactly in the middle of my page. And now, like I said, I need to hyperlink it. I need to make it so that when someone clicks on it, they are taken to my privacy policy page. So to hyperlink a text, you highlight it, And in that top toolbar where you would kind of edit the font stylings and the center alignment and everything, go to this one here that looks like two chains linking together for hyperlinks and click it. A pop-up will come up and it will say, oh, what's the URL of the site you want to hyperlink to? So I'm just going to use Convertri's own privacy policy page. Obviously, you would need to have your own. And it would also help if you spell it right. There we go. So that's our privacy policy page that we obviously already have. And the other thing that I'd recommend while this pop-up is open is you toggle on open in a new tab. Again, this is just advice, not mandatory. But the thing is, people are easily distracted. We're all easily distracted. And if you put it so that it opens in a new tab, then your privacy policy will open in a new tab as opposed to just opening in the same browser window and taking the user away from your site. And less people will click back to go to your original site as opposed to when they have it in a pop-up, they can read it in their own time, close it, and your page is still there saying, hey, sign up. So I'd really recommend that that opens in a new tab just to avoid that little drop off that might be associated with that. Once you're happy with that, you can click close and save, and it's got an underline on it, so I know that it's hyperlinked successfully. So this page is, I wouldn't say it's a carbon copy of the demo. It's what I have built myself. It changes every week depending on my font styling, etc. But this is looking pretty good. And before I want to say that it is done, there are a couple of things I need to do. And one of those is check how it looks in mobile, because more and more mobile traffic is coming up and we need to make sure that my page doesn't look like a hot mess. So in order to see your mobile stylings, in that top toolbar, the very top, you'll see design for desktop is blue because we're automatically in desktop. But if you click mobile, you'll be taken to how that would look on a mobile phone with that kind of, slimmer screen. And Convertri's done a pretty good job of making sure that my elements are stacked correctly. Having this panel back here really helps Convertri, and I'll get onto that in the tips and tricks to make it mobilize correctly. But I can move this all around at my own will if I wish, and it won't affect the desktop page. They are completely separate because we understand that some things work for desktop and some things work for mobile. So moving that text around does not affect how this looks over here. But let's say I've moved those things around and I've gone, it actually looked all right before, and now it kind of looks like a car crash. That's fine. What we have up here when you move the element is this little button will come up and say remobilize. And when you're clicking this, you're saying to Convertri, hey, if you saw this page, how would you make it look on mobile? Which was how it was automatically. So I'll click remobilize all. And it's popped those back to where I had them before, which was probably the correct way of doing things. Well, that's looking pretty good, guys. So I have this whole page set up and ready to go. But the thing is, in order to link up a form, I need to have a thank you page. So before I can set up the form on this page, I need to build myself a thank you page that gives the user the guide. So I'm going to make sure to save my changes before I go back to my funnel. Very, very important. And then I'm going to click X to go back to the funnel I was all the way at the beginning of this webinar. And now I need to build a thank you page for my funnel. And at this point you think, but I just watched you build a page, Honor. Do I have to watch you build another page? No, you don't. In the same way that I cloned that header and footer, I can clone this page. I have all my default text styles saved, the elements I used, the images I used, and I'm just going to make some tweaks. That way the user knows that there is this obvious house style between the two pages. They weren't redirected somewhere random. It's clearly the same site, which I think also helps, and it saves you lots of time in having to recreate the RGB values, etc. So on this page card where we hovered over to go to edit page, instead click on the 3-dot menu. You'll see lots of other options, but we want to click more. And you'll see a couple of page options come up, and one of them is clone. So I want to clone this page and then base my thank you page off it. So I'm going to do thank you page. I'm going to click clone. And now I have twins in my funnel ready for me to edit this one. Before I go into my thank you page, I'm going to do something that I think is one of the most important things I can instill at this point, which is I'm going to draw an arrow. So in the corner of all of our page cards, you have this arrow here. If you hold it and drag it, you can point it to anywhere you would like. If you hold it over another page card, it leaves a lasting arrow there. And this is great for a number of reasons. The main one is going to be that when I go back and set up a form on this page, because I've told Convertri that, that's the way the traffic's going to go, it'll automatically pre-fill the URL that I'm going to set for this page. And that is so important because the amount of times that you miss a letter, you miss something, and you type in that URL wrong, and then you're like, why is my thank you traffic not being directed correctly? It's that human error again, guys. I've done it. Let's just remove that. And not only does it do that, which is super helpful, but for me, it's a super great visual aid. You might build a funnel and it might sit there for a bit and then you might come back to it. And that arrow is telling you the way your funnel went. It's letting you be organized. You don't have to remember, gosh, what links to what. You can have as many arrows or as few arrows as you would like. So they are a super, super great feature to make use of. But for now, let's make sure that this thank you page does what it needs to do. So once the user reaches my thank you page, they've given me their information very kindly, and I need to, in return, give them the guide that I promised them here. So some of these form elements aren't so necessary anymore. So I'm going to get rid of the form inputs and a couple of other these little ones now. To delete an element is really simple. You either click on the element and click like delete or backspace on your keyboard, which is what I'm doing now. Or if you don't want to do that, you select the element if it wants to be selected. And you click on I think it's known as a trash can, I call it a bin up here, and it will say delete selected, and we will delete it. So again, I don't really need this message about spamming them because I've already got their email address. I don't need them to enter any details, so I don't need that. I'm just going to change this text because they signed up, they know what the guide is about, so I'm just going to tell them and make it nice and clear. So that is that, and I'm going to move this button up because a lot of free space. Drag the panel up. Oh, I'm resizing my window. There we go. Drag the panel up and just put this somewhere I want it more. Because the only thing that I really need is this button, which when clicked will allow the user to download my file. Just going to use the alignment tools on this container because I've made it a bit messy again. Going to center align them, and then I'm going to justify them. Cool. Move that up a bit. It's all a bit of eyeballing sometimes. But now I need to make this button not a sign up button, which is what it is automatically, which is why we left it on the previous page, but a download button. So when it's clicked, they are given that file and they can say, oh, hey, it was worth it. I've got my 7 top tips. To change the mode of this button, click on that element. The blue snap lines are around it. Go to element properties, go to button settings, and here you'll see the mode is sign up. What you need to do from this drop down is change it to download. So I've got a question from Sherry, sorry to interrupt the flow I had going. Can I put several pages together to make a site? You most definitely can, Sherry. What I'm going to do is at the end, when we do the FAQs, I'll show you how that's a bit more possible to build a kind of functioning website, because I know at the moment what I'm showing you is kind of a series of pages, and sometimes it's way more helpful to visualize pages put together. No, sorry to interrupt. It was an important question, and I will definitely show you a live demo at the end so you get a bit more detail. The short answer is yes, you can most definitely put together several pages to make a site. Cool. So I've set this mode to download, and you'll see that this little thing comes up here that says, what file do you want to download? And if you select this, what looks like, I guess, a file binder opening, a little pop-up will come up and it will say, so what file do you want? And I added this previously. In the same way you upload an image, you can either drag this from your homepage and pop it in here, or click upload. I've got a question from George. So how does the client move from that first page that I built into this second page, and how do we arrange at what page he arrives at? So arranging at what page they arrive at is completely up to you. For instance, if you are sending Facebook advertising to your site, just make sure you give them the opt-in page link, right? There's no point just sending them to the thank you page. They're all going to get the guide without doing it. So send all your traffic to that front page. And then how do I link them is, well, thanks to me drawing that arrow, in a minute, I'm going to go back to that opt-in page and I'm going to link up my form and my thank you page. And that will mean so that they'll type in their name, their email, press submit, and Convertri will redirect them to this page that I'm building now. So that's how that goes. And once I finish this demo, like you'll see the full flow happening. So guys, I've already uploaded my file and you'll see that there is only one little quirk here, and it's that individual files are limited to 40 megabytes. 40 megabytes is pretty big. It's kind of the similar pixabay limit thing. It's probably not going to affect you due to the fact that 40 megabytes is pretty big. But we are aware that some people sell things on Convertri as opposed to giving them away for free, and they might be a much higher file size. That's fine. You can still put that on your download button. This isn't the moment where you start to sweat. All you need to do is host that somewhere elsewhere. We recommend Amazon S3 just because it's cheap, but any file hosting service will work for this. And then pop the URL into that box and Convertri will know what to do. It'll know what you mean and it will work exactly the same way. But that's not an issue for me. My file is well within that, so I'm going to click on it and click select. And now my file has been added. There's a toggle below this that says force download on click, and this is another one of those things where Cindy's asked if you can use Google Drive for this. I will have to double check that, but I am not aware that you can because I believe it needs to be a contained, like I don't think you can use Dropbox for it, but Amazon S3 is super duper cheap. I think you can even get a free version to do file hosting, to be honest. So I don't think Google Drive is something that we do, sorry, but would definitely recommend Amazon S3. And we have a full walkthrough of that on our knowledge base that you will hear my voice on again that shows you how to get started with that. So apologies for that one, Cindy. So I was looking at this forced download on click thing. This is up to you. If I toggle this on, then when the user clicks this button, not only will the guide open, but it'll also automatically save to their files. And I think if someone has paid for something, that's probably going to be something you want to do. But this is a free guide of mine, so they might open it and think, this isn't what I wanted, which, people are funny, might happen. I don't want to automatically download it. It feels a bit aggressive for a free thing, so I'm not going to. It's just me. That's all up to you guys, but it's good to know what that toggle does. So my button is set up correctly, my text is set up correctly. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I'm just going to check it on mobile because that's always a good idea. Yeah, doesn't need to be big, doesn't need to be shiny. It's doing what it needs to do. So I think that this page is ready to go live, so I can link it up to the other page, right, and do the form and actually get those two working pages. So once you're ready for the world to see your page and for it to be live, you can click our publish button in the top hand toolbar. What will come up is the domain that your funnel's in. So that's the name of my funnel because that's the one I use for work. And then you need to either just click publish and publish it in the root domain. But in my case, I already have like a home page here, so I can't use the same site twice, right? That's not how the internet works. So instead, I need to think of something to go after the slash. So I'm going to put webinar thank you page. And then you'll see that that is the URL that a user would reach when they reach this page. So Cindy says, can we host on our website? You can host with Convertri. I assume if you can clarify if I'm answering completely the wrong question, Cindy. What I've got from this is, can we host with Convertri? So Convertri comes with 3 subdomains. They have .convertri at the bottom like this. So this is a .convertri subdomain, which means that you basically already have a domain ready to use, up to 3, in fact, that you add when you start your account. And you can host directly with them. You would hypothetically never have to buy a domain from someone like GoDaddy, HostGator, etc. You could completely all just do it on Convertri. However, some people aren't so keen on having .convertri in their URLs, If I'm running a company, it just makes the page a bit longer, etc. So people would then buy like honorwoodleywork.com without the .convertri, and then you can simply host it via us. So you can move the domain to us and then publish to it. So that's super, super simple. And I will show you at the end how to get some more resources about that, because I remember the first time I did that, super daunting. I literally did it today and it took me 10 minutes. You get used to it. So I'll show you how to do that, but you most certainly can. The download docs, you want to host the download docs. So I've just given you a different answer. Yeah, so once that download doc that I have here that I've added is hosted with Convertri. The only thing we can't host is things over 40 megabytes. So when you drag it from your desktop, or when you click upload, it has uploaded to your domain. It is hosted with us, and you don't need to use a third party unless you're over 40 megabytes. Sorry for not being clearer. So I'm happy with this as my URL. So I'm going to click publish and give it a second. It's got to get going. And when it's ready, this will go to published, and I can click view page. And if I do this, I'm taken to my live page with the URL I just typed in. And if I click this, I've got my privacy policy that I can click. And also I can click this and my file will download. So my thank you page is completely ready, and my home page is completely ready. So let's link them up and get a form going where I am receiving the email addresses of people who enter it. So I'm going to go back to my funnel, making sure I have those arrows drawn, because I didn't copy and paste my URL because I don't need to because of my friend the arrow. So I'm going to go back to the edit opt-in page and click edit page. And everything's as it was, as expected. And we already set this up earlier. But what we do now need to do is form. So there's lots of different options for autoresponder integration. I believe I'm going to use MailChimp. It's what I normally use. But you can use anything. And before you do this, you need to make sure you have integrated them with Convertri. This is super simple. There is a help doc about how to do this for every single integration on our knowledge base. But just make sure you've integrated it first, or the next step isn't going to go as smoothly. Once you have, go to Forms in the top-hand toolbar. And there's a lot of different options here, but today we're going to go for the easiest, which is autoresponders, which is the ones that you have integrated with. Like I said, I'm going to use MailChimp, but we have a whole host of different autoresponders here. So I'm going to click MailChimp and it's integrated. So it asks me which MailChimp would I like to add my prospects to. So in autoresponders, I don't know how familiar everyone is, so I'll just quickly go over it, but I might be repeating some stuff that people know. So sorry about that. So in autoresponders, you can create several lists. These are areas where you have different types of people. That's how I like to think of it. So the example I give is if I'm running a pet shop and I have people who own dogs and people who own cats, I might want to only email the people who own cat products, right? Because it's a wasted email on the dog people. They don't care. So I would have a page that says, hey, you interested in cat emails? Sign up here. And what I would have would be a list called like cat people or cat. And this would then just gather a list of people who liked cats. I would have an identical page linked up to my dog list that would gather the people that like dogs, and I can just really target them how I want. You don't have to do that. You can just have a general master contact list and check all your emails out, but that is totally an option, and that is why we ask. So from the drop down, choose your list, and up will come up some at first scary looking information. And this is as technical as this webinar will get. So just hang tight for a second. It's not as confusing as it seems. What we have here is fixed fields, which is Convertri and MailChimp basically saying that email box, which is this, is definitely an email box. You can't change it. You can't tell me I'm wrong. It's an email box. This fixed field will never be wrong, so don't worry about that. It's basically saying, yeah, no, it's an email box. And this will vary between different autoresponders. First and last name might also be fixed in ActiveCampaign, for instance. Just means that you can't change the form field configuration, but you can with these, and sometimes that needs to be done. So occasionally you will reach this screen and you will see that these have kind of guessed the right ones, but then this one hasn't. So phone number doesn't have a type, it has none. And all I need to do is click on this drop down and find the thing that matches it best. So they're phrased slightly differently, but I think everyone knows that a phone number is phone, right? I'm leaving birthday blank because I'm not using it. But if I did want to gather someone's birthday, I would of course need to fill this out. But if you're not, it's not so relevant. Where possible, it's good practice to just fill these in the first time and then you don't have to stress about it. But it is one of the most common causes of people saying, oh, my form definitely works, but none of the information gets there. And it's because if you don't tell both MailChimp and Convertri what the information is, it has no clue how to tell it to you, right? They're clever computers, but they still need a bit of a nudge from us. So these are set up how I need them to be, especially first name and email, because those are the two I'm collecting. So I'm going to click next. It's going to ask me what I want to do when this form submits, and as you may have gauged from this, I want them to go to my thank you page. This isn't something you have to do. If you toggled this on, they would just stay on the page. But we always say, if you have a moment, do build a thank you page. This is for a number of reasons, but the main one is that it's a bit confusing. If you stay on the page, sometimes people don't think it's gone through and you end up with someone giving you their email address 3 times and it being in your mailing list 3 times and you ended up with clutter. So I always say build a cheeky little thank you page, like mine was really easy to build, and then you don't have to worry about that. And because I drew that arrow, my thank you page URL automatically filled in. Didn't have to think about it. Out of the corner, just done. If I had drawn multiple arrows, this suggestions bar would come up with all of the different pages with the URL and the name and say, hey, which is, the thank you page. In this scenario, just drew the one arrow, nice and simple, and it's automatically set up. So I'm going to click done. And that is set up, guys. And I know that it's gone well because I've got this red tick next to forms. If you went through these steps and you didn't get that red tick, I would recommend trying it again or going to our knowledge base, rewatching this webinar, because no red tick means no form. I'm just going to do a little check of something, and that is I just set the form field types. I just allocated them inside MailChimp, and I said a phone number is phone, right? That's what those were. Well, I need to make sure that my boxes are also understanding that. And so I'm going to click on them and go to element properties and form field settings. And I can see that this one is correct because it has the right assigned form field. But you might have that situation again where you have none and you just need to make sure that this is first name and this is email. So again, that would be another cause of why your information didn't go over. Really simple, just make sure that these are allocated correctly. But they are, and my form is set up and my page is working and I'm feeling good. So you know what? I'm going to put this live and we are going to test my funnel. So I'm going to click publish like I did with the thank you page, and I'm going to choose another URL. It's totally up to you, but webinar opt-in seems pretty fitting for me. And I'm going to click publish. And the magic is about to happen. Right there. My page is now live. So this is the page that I built. This is what it would look like to a user if they reached this. And I'm going to put it to the test because I'm pretty confident it works. I'm going to put in my name. I'm going to put in our email address for support because that is the most important email address of this whole webinar. And I'm going to click download now. Sending form. And now I'm at the thank you page. I could click that and download the guide. So my form completely works, guys. And I have officially built my first ever funnel. So that is the end of the funnel building segment of this webinar. Hope it was useful. Before I move on to the tips and tricks, which again I really recommend hanging around for, is there any general questions about anything I just did? Like I said, I will do a mass FAQs at the end for anything that is niggling in the back of your brain. But in terms of anything I just did, does anyone have anything that they need repeating, explaining, elaborating? Gives me a second to get a drink of water as well because it's talking. Well, Steve says it's all clear. Well, that's nice. Thanks, Steve. Glad I got through that without a question from you. So Sherry's asking about templates. I don't know if when you joined at the start, Sherry, about templates, because I didn't really explain in too much detail. But when I click new page, like how I did before when I originally if you think way back to the start of the webinar, if I click new page and I click to create a page from scratch, oh, you missed the beginning. That will be why I'm about to show you the shiny template. So I clicked create a page from scratch and we went from the base up. But this is all of the templates that we have inside Convertri, and oh my gosh, are there many? I don't think I've even been able to see them all. Our newest ones hit the bottom, so I tend to go to the bottom and work my way up because I think that's super interesting. But what you do have here is, whole sites. So for instance, for a music teacher, we have a whole site, a home, a services page, an about page that is just waiting for you guys to add your finishing touches to it. So we have so many templates ready and waiting for you guys to use. And also, it's always good to say, in terms of this, for instance, is for selling succulents, this funnel, but actually the way it's laid out on the checkout page, I've used it, for instance, I used it recently to create an example page for a yoga company because I thought the colors were pretty soothing. So don't feel bound in by what we say those pages are. They're just kind of a starting off point. So Charlene says, what do you recommend for quiz funnels? So quiz funnels are a little bit difficult. They are something that is hard to build, and Convertri doesn't have a direct quiz setup. We don't have a funnel ready-made where a user clicks through. There is kind of two things I would recommend for quiz funnels. The first is to check out our sister product, Quizitri. Sounds like Convertri, but it's Quizitri. So it's Quiz-I-T-R-I, if I can spell the product. And that is a quiz. That is a quiz function that we directly integrate with it. So I will just go back into the page editor and show you this for a second. If you set up a quiz in Quizitri and you go to, I'll just let the page load. It loads a little bit slower while I'm on the webinar because I'm using up all of its Wi-Fi all the time. Doo-doo-doo. Eventually, there we go. So I'm going to click on more elements, which is the final thing on the elements tray. It's 3 dots, and you will say the Quizitri comes up here, and you can literally just add your Quizitri quizzes really simply without having to do anything. If you don't want to buy Quizitri and you want to push through using Convertri, I have seen that done. What ends up happening is quite a complex map of things where you need several pages that all link up to one another for different options, and so it can get really difficult. But in order to build a quiz funnel, what you would need to do is map out, I get a scrap piece of paper, all the different options and where the user can go to, and then you would just, where these buttons were download buttons or sign up buttons, you could create a link button. Each button, there's 3 buttons on the page. It's, which of these 3 suits you best, and based on that you take them to a different link, and so on and so forth. So quiz funnels can be a little bit difficult to build, but I have seen it done. I have seen people do it completely without Quizitri, and it is possible. Just setting links to other pages is how you would do that. And yeah, Sherry has asked, Quizitri does directly integrate with Convertri, so you don't need to set anything up. Use your Quizitri account if you did have one. When you create a quiz, it goes live. The same way we published this, we publish a quiz, and then all you have to do is where I showed that element, it will prompt you for a link. You give it the link, and the quiz will display on your page. So that is another option. That obviously I know about Quizitri because I sell it. There are probably other options out there as well. So George has asked, can I integrate a buy button on the website as well? Yes, you totally can. So we choose not to show it in the demo because it's a pretty long process. But you can totally. So you'll see up here is the cart. I'll go to it and we'll see what's in mine. And this is all things selling inside Convertri. This is all of the things that I've set up products for, probably just checking out how they work, etc. for other people. So you create a product that you want to sell inside Convertri. And the same way that you had that button that was a download button, I've just talked about it being a link button, you just change the mode. There's an open checkout mode. And so you can get that all started here. To find out more about that and to set it up completely, because it's totally possible and what we're set up for, go to help.convertri.com. And one of these, I believe, is products and payments. Or you can just type it in. You can just type it in exactly, what you want. So we're looking for product we're looking to check out. We're setting a checkout up. There we go. How to create a working checkout page, creating a modal checkout. We'll walk you through start to finish, George, how to do that and start selling in Convertri, which is another super exciting thing. What a question from Steve about this red exclamation mark. So I should have explained that a little bit more. It's kind of a recent thing. I would say this feature is about 2 months old. Time moves differently in the times of COVID. You'll see if I hover over it, it says save not published. And this one says published. Well, it doesn't say published. In fact, it shows the URL. If there's a green tick over a page, it means, yep, you have published the most up-to-date version of this page. What that exclamation mark is saying, probably from where I went on to look at the Convertri element, oh, you did something to that page, but you didn't publish it. So the most up-to-date version isn't live on the internet. And that's just good when you're looking in your funnel at a glance to see what is and isn't published at its most recent version. You can go in and if you think it should be, you can change it. You'll see these two don't have them because they are just not live. They have not been published yet. I'm just checking out your questions, guys. They're all going to get answered, so don't worry. We've got another one from Simona. So we have partners, and one of our partners is DBL, but also people in general, as you have mentioned in your question, Simona. They have sites on WordPress and they want to know how to make it work with Convertri. And so where possible, we say try and do your whole site on Convertri. But that isn't always possible. And if you have a previous setup, that's just not going to work for you. And I get that, especially with DBL. So Simona's asking, how do I get those two to connect? How do I make sure that I have a whole site? So there's a couple of different things you can do. You can import, if you have a link to a page on WordPress, I did this recently with a customer on an onboarding call, you can click import page and you can simply click in the URL, confirm that you own it, don't do it to someone's page you don't own, give it a name and click import, and Convertri will give you as close of a possible version to your page as you have. It will give you as much of a copy as we can. If there is complex HTML on the page, like an FAQs accordion, it's not going to exactly replicate that. But what it is going to do is give you your site, link it up again. So you could choose to move your whole site over to Convertri, which is one option. But if you have pages that are already built and you don't need to do, it's pretty simple. For instance, we're talking about earlier about building a built-up site. I believe that was Sherry that asked that. You can create a menu element at the top of your page, and it will have different links, a home link, an about me link, a buy link, a testimonials link. If you have your homepage hosted at WordPress and you have, the rest of your site, maybe you're selling on Convertri, just make sure that the menu links are the WordPress links and the other links are the Convertri links, and people will swap between them without really noticing. So it's totally possible. How you do it is up to you. And like any question that I answer on this webinar, if you need any more kind of practical links or information on this answer that I've just given, just email me at support@convertri.com and someone will let you know. We have a lot of people passing over from places like DBL or WordPress, and they want to know how to make it work. We've also got George saying, is it possible to add the email form as a pop-up with a timer? And I love that, because yes, you can. And now I get to talk about how you can. I believe we have a help article on this. So definitely do somewhere. No, we don't want to make a layer sticky. You can use layers, is what this is basically saying when I've typed in pop-up. So if you wanted to have this on a layer that popped up later on, maybe you had this information on the main page and this would happen later, you can do that in loads of different ways. I'm trying to think how I would have this best on the page. A two-step opt-in is kind of that. So a two-step opt-in is where they enter some information, then they click it, and then it would trigger a layer to open. You can also trigger a layer to open after a set amount of time on the page. So the short of that is yes, you can. And we have pre-made ones. That is achieved by using layers and then actions and events. So how to create a pop-up is right there. I knew it was hiding from me. So we have a whole article about how to create a pop-up. That can be after a set amount of time. That can be after someone looks at something else. All of that good stuff. Check out that article. It will help you a lot and you'll be up and running with a pop-up in no time. So Sherry, sorry, I miscommunicated talking about site building. You're not on WordPress, you're on another user. So Convertri is the fastest funnel builder on the internet. We are proud to wear that badge. So there's a variety of different ways. Like in the same way I talked about linking to your WordPress pages, you could link to someone else. So I think you're talking about lead pages. You could either import your lead pages here and leave your account behind, because paying for both might be slightly irritating. So you could just click import page in the same way, bring it over. Yeah, so you could import and leave. Sherry, or alternatively, if you had pages there that you were really, really committed to, you could just link back and forth to them, a button with a link. The same way that if you think about navigating around any kind of website, if you even think about this, if you click here, it's a new link. If you click here, so as long as the links were all in the correct places, you could do pretty seamless integration. But I can confirm that Convertri is the fastest. So you have a site and funnel. So you would just have to you would get an empty funnel inside Convertri, like I did. And you would just import those pages one by one, see how well we import them. But I imagine if they're from another funnel builder, then we will be able to import them pretty well, because we all kind of use the same basic idea. And see, you're welcome, if you're in a trial, Sherry, to import these into your account and see if it works for you and make a decision based on it. I think I got through your questions there, guys. Feeling pretty pleased. But again, I welcome more and more questions. But in the meantime, I'm going to move on to our tips and tricks today, because as I said, they're my favorite bit, because I think they're pretty awesome. So I'm going to go into a new page that I made earlier. This is a template in Convertri, in fact. I believe it's called Coffee, the name of this template, but I've named it Tips and Tricks. And I'm going to show you, this bit is about making the most of Convertri. This is about editing down your time. I don't want to say I'm lazy, but if I can do these things and everything's perfect and no one knows I spent half the time on it, then I'm going to do them. So I've added this template page. We need some love. We've got some Latin here, which obviously I'm not going to be using, but I'm just going to have a scout around and see what I like and what I don't like. It's pretty cool. It's got some testimonial spaces so I can show off how cool I am and how much people love me. But I'm not crazy about this menu off the bat. Don't really like it. Don't tell my designers I said that. So someone's asked how I can integrate with Aweber, and I will show you that at the end, because that's super, super simple. So I'll get to you. I will leave your question in my box so I don't forget. So this menu, it's bugging me, it's irking me, but it's got a load of elements in it, and I'm going to have to go through and click the trash and for each of these. And as we just learned about 2 minutes ago, kind of lazy. Well, I don't actually in any way need to click all of these elements. I can just do a mass delete, and this is super simple. The way I talked earlier about people using panels was that they use clear, or in this case, a black panel, is what's behind here, to contain all their elements. You can tell they're contained because when I click, those beautiful pink lines show up. The way our templates are built, they all have these behind them to allow for easy editing, and it's pretty good practice if you can slip it into your own everyday life. I've got another question here from Sherry as well, which is quite a good question because I get it very, very often. Can I pay you, or can I pay someone else to work on my Convertri site? So Convertri we are a lovely company, but we're pretty small and we don't quite have the capacity yet to do those kind of services that I know maybe somewhere like Wix would do, for instance, as a website builder. But there are people that do make their living off having you want a list of them. So we don't have a list of people that can do this. The best thing to do is join our Facebook group, which is the Convertri Clubhouse. And you say, hey, I'm Sherry. Do any of you guys have examples of your work? That's where all the people hang out. That's where everyone hangs out. I'm in there. But if you do that, or you scroll through to previous posts where people have posted that, you'll get a list of comments of people that you can contact on Facebook and say, hey, can I have an example of your work? I have this much to spend and I want this built. So we don't have a list, unfortunately, but what we do have is a Facebook group full of friendly faces. So I'm finally going to get rid of this pesky menu because it's looking me dead in the eye. So I'm going to click on the container when all of these elements are selected, and I'm going to delete it how I deleted my elements earlier. I can either go to the bin, but I'm just going to backspace it. and that is gone, and I didn't have to fiddle about in case, sometimes elements go astray. You think you've deleted it, you haven't, it wreaks havoc. I can't be bothered with it. But now I have all this empty space on my page, and there's quite a few elements down here. I'm moving them up one by one. Again, doesn't play with me being lazy and all, but there is actually a simple trick to get this panel here to simply just tuck itself up to the next element. And that is to click on it so you can see the blue lines, the pink lines. You've heard me say that before. And then you click remove white space above. And this just is telling Convertri, tell this element to tuck up to the next element. Tell it to tuck up. So I click that, and the whole underneath as well tucks to the next panel. And you never would have known that that menu element was there. So don't waste your time, guys, dragging them one by one. This works outside of panels as well. For instance, if there wasn't a panel here and I clicked it with this, it would do the same thing. That's looking pretty good, but let's say I have a bit of regret. Maybe I liked the space. Maybe this is too much space for me or too little. You can really easily move this panel without having to move everything one by one. And that is by using a little keyboard shortcut, which is Shift and drag. So holding down Shift on your keyboard, which I am doing now, and then dragging this panel allows you to move it up and down as you will. All of the other elements underneath it are moving, it's not just the panel. So I'm just going to give it a bit more space, a bit more breathing room, like that. So never be worried, guys, that you've removed that white space and it's never coming back. It's always coming back. Yeah, Sherry's gone, oh my gosh, how easy is that? It took me weeks to find that out, and when I found it out, I was mind blown. So don't take weeks like me. Find it out right now. So those hacks have helped me out so far. Let's see what else I can do, what else I can show off on this page. Obviously, I'll need to replace all these images at some point. I'll get to that in the future. But there's another keyboard shortcut that I really like that I want to show you guys. And that is, rather than using Shift drag, that is using Alt drag. Alt drag clones it. So even though that clone button is super simple, blue snap lines, then click on it, there's an even lazier way of doing it, which, yes, I love lazy ways. So when I'm holding down, I held down Shift before, and I'm holding down Alt, and then I just drag the element, it makes a second one. So I'm holding down Alt and dragging, holding down Alt and dragging, and I've replicated that because I might want to make them on a sidebar, or I might want to see layers. There's all sorts of reasons you would want to double up those elements, and I just did it in like 3 seconds, so I'm pretty happy. But I can't claim to do that neat. Sherry's asked again about the replay, so I'm in charge of putting that replay up, and hopefully we always guarantee that it will be out by the following Tuesday, but I'm hoping to get it up quicker than that if I can, if time allows, which it should do. So hopefully there will be a replay of this up by Tuesday, and we'll post about it in our Facebook group and in our update emails. But if you go back to trustyhelper.convertri.com and go to the knowledge base, which is where you get when you first, no, we don't want to go to convertri.com, we want to be at helper.convertri.com. Go to the knowledge base, which is where you first hit when you get to this site, and you go to getting started webinars. You will see all the previous times me and my co-workers have done this presentation. So if you are super impatient, you can't even wait for this one to get up, Sherry, just go here and you'll see them. But very soon, this one will be filling this spot just here. Yep, this whole situation, start to finish, from the moment I start blabbering to the end of me blabbering, will all be there. So I'm impatient too, Sherry. That's why I try to get them up as quickly as possible. But it's very much based on whether computers and YouTube, etc., want to play fair with me. But feel free to shoot me an email, and I will give you like an update the moment that it's sent out, which I normally have for this webinar. I have people being like, I need the replay now, so I do it. Nathaniel has said what button. So the 2 buttons that we've used was Shift drag to move the elements up and down, and the other one is Alt, E-L-T. On my keyboard, it's just down from the Alt next to the spacebar. There's one either side of the spacebar, but that's not true on Mac keyboards. It's next to the Command. So don't know what you've got, Nathaniel, but that is Alt. And when you hold it down, and then it will clone it again. So now I have all of these elements and they're cloned, but gosh, are they messy, and I'm going to have to line them all up, and I don't want to. So I'm going to make use of the panels again. No worries, Nathaniel. So I'm going to drag it onto the page, and I'm going to use this to align these. Whereas before we've used them kind of as a backing panel, and then the alignment has come not as an afterthought, but it's been a useful thing. Why don't I just make this completely just to arrange these images? Sherry, thank you for Sherry is complimenting me. I know you guys can't see the questions. Really glad you came. And again, I'm like a parrot. If you do have a single issue with Convertri, a single question, a single but what, just email support@convertri.com and we will help you out. Cool. So this panel is going to arrange for me. So I can't actually see the elements behind it because I'm a plonker. So I'm going to go to display in the top toolbar, and I'm going to toggle on element outlines. And what this does is show me where all the elements are. And this is my favorite trick, because sometimes people will say, well, this is element and I can't see it and I can't get to it. Turn on element outlines, you'll find it. That's all we're doing. So there you go. So now I know that I've contained all of these. I need to make sure it's big enough that all of my little pink lines are inside, but it doesn't need to be that big at the bottom. In order for something to act as a container, the elements need to be sat in front of it. So with this clicked, I'm going to use these, which is either you can completely center back, completely center front, but I want it to be in front of that black square, but behind the images. So I'm going to send backwards until all my images pop over it. Get them in a second. There we go. I'm going to go to element properties, background. This is the bit where I start to repeat myself because you guys know too much. Scroll this all the way to the bottom. All the way to the bottom, completely opaque. No one would know my box was there, but I know my box is there because I've got element outlines on. And click select. And now I've got this completely clear box that can help me arrange these images. So the same as I did before, little arrow here next to the alignment tools. I'm in container mode. We did some center aligning before, but that's not going to float here because they're going to stack on top of each other. I'm going to do a middle align, which immediately looks better than I did off the bat, which is always useful. And then we can either horizontally contain or justify horizontally. This is slightly neater, and this will just completely space them out. So I'm going to go like that. And just like that, all my images are tucked up, and you wouldn't even know that that wasn't part of the template to begin with. So obviously this is just an example, but if I click off it and I turned off these element outlines, you'd have no clue that box was there, and your users aren't going to, but it's going to help you in the long term. Cool. So I'm probably going to spend the next thing talking about so someone's asked for a guide for step-by-step setup. So kind of what I've shown you today has been setting up your first funnel, right? But it sometimes doesn't feel like the first thing inside Convertri. The best thing to do is go to the knowledge base. I love the knowledge base. You're going to hear my voice on the knowledge base. Rather than getting started webinars, click getting started. And what we have here is our first 5 things: how to set up your account, how to create your first funnel. And once you've done these 5 plus the tips and tricks that I give you today and the webinar, you'll be feeling a lot better, Ashish. So I'd recommend going here. But again, if you get to the 3rd article and think, what on earth is going on? Shoot me an email. The email isn't just for, oh my gosh, something's broken. It's for, oh, can you help me out? We are very, very friendly people. So I'm now going to see how this is all looking on mobile, because I don't mind it right now. Oh, I've scrolled down to where I was. That's why it's done that. And I'm going to click remobilize because I've made some changes. Just want to make sure things are going well. You're welcome, Ashish. So Sherry's interestingly put I want somewhere to put my brand colors and logos for all pages. So you've probably seen the logo at the top and thought, well, where do I do that? So where I uploaded an image before, you will have noticed that I didn't actually upload the image. I had it in my library. Once you upload an image once, it'll always be in your account. So the best thing to do is upload your logo as an image, and then you can add it to your page whenever you want. For checkouts, which I don't have one set up, but if I was to set out a checkout, then you have a separate option to add your logo here. So for checkouts, you can add them, and then for everything else, you kind of just add an image. And brand colors is a little bit tougher. Again, if you set up your page with your default text styles and like very specific visual stylings, then those would be saved if you cloned them all across, but you can't automatically set these across a whole funnel, for instance, which I think is what we're getting at here. I can't set the text styles for a whole funnel. The recommended thing to do would be to have a base page where you set it up once, and then you have this like plain page with all your settings on. And instead of clicking new page, you just clone that page all the time. So that's how we would do that. But that is really interesting point, Sherry, and I will make a little note of that for our features team, because all the features that we build, one of which I will show in a minute, are asked for by our users, because there's no point building something that you guys don't want. So I'll make a little note that that was requested on the webinar, Sherry, and sorry it wasn't better news. So I'm now looking at this page, and off the bat I'm like, oh gosh, that text doesn't look right, because in my desktop page it all made sense. Like the bread is above the bread text and the pastry is above the pastry text, and now they're all stacked because computers are clever, but sometimes they're not that clever. And so I could fix this, right? Like, this is a freeform editor, I can drag these around, but there's actually something you can do that means I never would have encountered this problem in the first place, and I don't think you're going to be surprised when I say that it's panels. So to make the most of mobile on your page, just build a successful desktop page that talks well to mobile. And the way to do this is to understand how our mobilizer works. And I like to think our mobilizer reads books every day. So it reads web pages like books, and it does it like so. So our remobilizer goes, oh, for a mobile page, I'm going to read across, and it's that element, and it's that element. And then they want the image. Cool. And then it's read this as one whole line. It's gone, they want bread, and then they want pastry, and then they want coffee, and then they want that text, and then they want that text, and they want that text. And it's not wrong, you know? I didn't tell it otherwise. How could it know? But if I added a panel, which is now in front, which is why my pink lines are very useful. If I added a panel, I sent that panel behind those two. I went to element properties, background, made it see-through again. And then I go back to mobile without even having to click a button. It's suddenly gone, oh, I get you. Because when it's read the book, as I like to refer to it, it's hit this and it's hit whole element. It hasn't just hit bread, it's hit the whole element. It's gone, they're grouped. They must be grouped together. So if I repeat this process for both pastry and coffee, if you bear with me. And finally coffee. Make sure all my pink lines are in it, background, make that baby see-through, make sure I send it backwards twice. And I go to mobile. I didn't have to click anything. I didn't have to click remobilize, and Convertri's reread the book. So you don't even have to prompt it there. So good practice would be, yeah, George is saying alt drag the pane. They know, you guys know too much now. Yeah, I probably could do that. I might do that next webinar. Thanks, George. I'm stuck in my ways, so I don't do that. But actually, yeah, I could just make one pane and alt drag it. Well, there you go. I taught George something. George taught me something. So yeah, or you could alt drag that pane and get going with that way. But either way, thanks, George. Either way, we now have a page that is looking better. I'm scrolling through. Yeah, I'm liking what I'm seeing. It makes sense. This has irritated me. On my desktop page, these little social media icons, pretty common to have on any kind of page, they're landscape, but they're not landscape on my mobile page, and that is annoying me. And how am I going to fix it? I'm going to put a panel on it. This is the point where you guys start to think, oh my gosh, Anna, what else? But I promise this is your final panel. So it's just Convertri's read the book again, and it stacked them on top of each other, and it doesn't know any better, but I'm just going to pop them behind it. You've seen background enough times. Click select. And if I go back to mobile, they are now landscape. But one thing to note with this, if I go to element properties, I believe I can see it in borders. No, I can't. I can see it in positioning. You'll see my width is 222. Yeah, you're like, whatever. Why is it relevant? If I made this width 300 or more, then these would no longer be landscape, they would be portrait again. And that is because it's the mobile breakpoint for mobilization. So you could make a panel that big, it works totally fine. But there comes a point where you can't force something to fit on a mobile screen that just straight up doesn't fit. So that's the 300 is the mobile breakpoint. So if I took this back down to 290, I made sure that that was the case here, 290, and then I went back to mobile. Oh, they're not playing fair today. Why don't you want to play fair with me? I'll do it manually then. 212, go back here. It's because I've edited it on mobile, guys. So you can do individual editing on mobile. However, it will then take a life of its own. It won't be exactly the same. So I've clicked back a bit. Let's see how far I can go back. So I use Convertri every day and I still make mistakes. So I hope that makes everyone feel better in the future if they ever make a mistake. There we go. And we are looking good. But like I said, make that more than 300 and it's not going to play fair with you. So if things aren't working, that's probably why. See if you can tuck it in, and if not, it just wasn't meant to be for your mobile page. Right, guys, you've reached the end of tips and tricks as well. And so in a minute, I'll be taking final FAQs. I've still got that one about integrating Aweber, and I have not forgot about you. I will get to you. But what I'm going to do is start asking me those questions. I'm going to let them roll in. And while they are rolling in, so I have a good stack, I'm going to show you guys this week's feature updates because I think they're pretty cool. So first of all, before I show you the main feature update, I'm going to do notable mentions. If you use Zapier, we introduced loads more zaps to allow you to see your information, which was super duper requested. We now allow it so you can see unique views on a split test, which again, super requested. And recently we made it so that all parameters were passed on when a form was submitted. And we thought this was a great idea. And then it came into action and people emailed us and said, I actually don't want these passed on. You've made them automatic. And so this week we fixed our boo-boo because we listened to you guys and something, trial and error. It didn't work. We fixed it. All of our users have been contacted and we've moved on. So that has happened. But the main feature update that we've had has been highly requested. And that is a change of appearance to our modal checkout. So our modal checkout appears when you have a product set up on a page, which here's one I made earlier. And the buy button, which again, not set to set up, is not set to download, it is set to open checkout. So when this is clicked, a checkout will open. And before, you couldn't really edit that checkout too much. You could change the text on it and what questions you asked, but its actual appearance was just kind of the classic Convertri blue. And that was fine, but some people really wanted their brand to shine through in the checkout, and I totally understand that. So we had a talk with one of our designers, and he designed us 2 new checkouts. The first, we've got our classic, which is what would be automatically. The first is fresh. So I went to check out appearance and I clicked change next to the skin. They're called skins. It's just like wearing a different skin, wearing a different outfit. If I click preview, that is what this checkout looks like. So this is the product I have on my page. That is what that checkout looks like. The other option, if I click change, is a 2-step checkout. And this is so that a user, I'll click select and preview and you'll see for yourself. This means that the first part of the checkout, they click that button, this pops up. You can edit this text and all of this good stuff. They enter their name and their email address, they click next, they get to step 2, and then they decide, I'm not so keen on buying. You can add this thing called cart abandonment, where then they get added to a list because they clicked that next button, and you get to email them saying, hey, did you forget something? Do you want to buy it? Because sometimes people don't buy something not because they don't want to, but because life is full of distractions. And so by giving them that extra prompt, you will probably see your sales increase. And this was so highly requested. So we now have this built in and ready to use. So that is all I have in terms of presentation for you guys today. So I'm going to get to some of my questions. I can see I've got one from you, Sherry, and I will get to it. I'm just going to do the Aweber question first because I have put that in park for quite a while now. So for who was asking about the Aweber integration, really, really simple. Go to your account dashboard, which is here, tells you everything you need to know about your account. You're going to see all how many pages I have and everything. Go to integrations in the left-hand toolbar, and you will see the full list of everyone we integrate with. And here we have Aweber, MailChimp, the whole shebang. Click setup over the one you want. You can see I'm already successfully connected, but it will either prompt you to enter an API key, or it will prompt you to just connect your account by simply logging in. If you want to know more about that, I made a full Aweber walkthrough. There we go. Oh no, that's how to integrate it via API, which is a great video in itself, but this is a full Aweber walkthrough. This will take you from being a person who does not have it integrated to doing what I did today, which is not only connecting it, but creating a list, creating the form. You'll see that screenshot looks kind of familiar to what I've just done. So that will walk you straight through. So having a check out of that, and you will totally get all the information you need, and you can pause it rather than watching me do it now. Sherry says you can use your own form. You most certainly can. You can either sell directly with Convertri using like Stripe or PayPal, seen here. You can use an on-page checkout and completely edit exactly how you want it to be. Or alternatively, if you had a shop elsewhere and you were just using these as like extra pages, you just link off to that page. So there's lots of different options for that, so don't worry about that. We've got some compliments here. I always like end of webinar compliments, guys, not hinting, just saying. Really great help to us. It was recommended by Spark by ClickBank, so that is another one of our partners, someone that we work with to get Convertri accounts, because ClickBank is pretty big for affiliate marketing. So it made a lot of sense for us to work with them because that is one of the things that people use funnel building for. So I have talked you guys' ear off, but before I go, is there anything else, big or small? Ask it now or email me later. I've got a couple more thank yous, some smiley faces. Thank you very much, guys. And it's looking like I might have actually managed to talk everyone's ears off enough today. I'm getting just thank yous and no more questions. But like I said, in 20 minutes time, you might think, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Just shoot me an email. I will now, in the chat, while people just say their goodbyes, I'll put the email, support@convertri, helps if I spell it right, .com. Email us there, ask any question you would like, and we will be there. So I'm just going to check, and that was no more questions, guys, so I will be ending the webinar. Thank you for being a lovely chatty bunch, asking questions that I enjoyed answering, engaging, and I hope that you all have fun with Convertri. I know I do, and hopefully this has cleared up some of those things that felt like gaps in your knowledge. So have a great rest of your day, whatever time it is with you, and I'll catch you in the Facebook group or on email.